The dream, like most dreams, was expensive. It was a sun-drenched, rustic-chic fantasy at a sprawling, painfully trendy wedding venue in the Texas Hill Country outside of Austin. It had a lovingly restored century-old barn for the reception, a grove of ancient oak trees for the ceremony, and a price tag that made my accountant's brain feel a kind of dizzy, nauseous vertigo. The dream was not, if I'm being honest, entirely mine. It was my fiancée, as it was Jessica's, and because I was so completely, hopelessly in love with her, I had made her dream my own. For the past 6 months, my life had been a blur of wedding planning. A chaotic whirlwind of cake tastings, floral arrangements, and tense conversations about the budget. I was a practical man, an architect. I build things that are meant to last, on time and under budget. My approach to our wedding was the same. I had spreadsheets. I had cost analysis. Charts. Jessica, who worked in high-end fashion, had a different approach. She had a vision, a Pinterest board, a series of non-negotiable aesthetic requirements. But honey, we need the gold leaf chargers, she'd say. Her beautiful face a mask of profound artistic sincerity as she showed me a picture on her phone. They tie the whole tablescape together. The photos will be timeless. The plastic ones look exactly the same and they cost 1/10 as much, I'd argue. Pointing to my spreadsheet, double quotes, no, Leo, they don't. She'd sigh, a sound of weary patience, as if explaining a complex theorem to a small, slow child. The light reflects differently off the plastic. It will look cheap. Is that what you want our wedding to be? She? And I, of course, would cave. I always caved. I would look at her passionate, pleading eyes, and my logical, frugal brain would just short-circuit. I saw her desire for a perfect, beautiful day, and I mistook it for a deep, romantic soul. I did not, at the time, recognize it for what it was: a ruthless, all-consuming materialism, a hunger for an image, a need to project a life of effortless, expensive perfection. I was so in love with the woman I thought she was. I was completely blind to the woman she actually was. We were 2 weeks out from the big day. Every vendor had been booked, every deposit paid. All that was left was the final, massive, soul-crushing payment for the venue. $50,000. We had a joint savings account, our wedding fund, where we had both been diligently depositing money for the past year. My half was there. I had saved every spare dollar. But Jessica, with her expensive tastes and her slightly mysterious freelance income, was coming up short. She was $10,000 shy of her half. "I'm so sorry, babe," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "A few of my clients paid late. The money's coming, I promise. But the venue needs the final payment by next week, or we lose our date." She looked at me, her face a perfect picture of despair. We were so close. I knew in that moment that there was only one thing to do. The one thing I had sworn to myself I would never do. I had one last valuable asset. One final, sacred thing I could sacrifice on the altar of her dream: my Mustang. It was not just a car. It was a time machine. A 1967 Ford Mustang, candy apple red, with a roaring 289 V8 engine and a cream-colored interior. But more than that, it was the last living piece of my father. He had bought it as a wreck, a rusted-out shell of a thing, the year I was born. For the next 16 years, we had restored it together in the small, cluttered garage behind our house. My father was a quiet, gentle man from the Philippines. A man who had come to America with nothing but a mechanical engineering degree and a profound, unshakable belief in the value of hard work. He was a man who could fix anything. He had taught me how to rebuild a carburetor, how to gap a spark plug, how to work a Bondo filler until it was as smooth as glass. But he had also taught me about life. I remember one hot Texas afternoon. I was maybe 15. We were struggling to align the new front fender. I was frustrated, angry, ready to throw a wrench across the garage. He had put his hand on my shoulder. "Enoch," he said, his voice calm and steady. "This car is not about speed. It is about patience." He had told me about his own father, my Lolo, in Sibilum, a man who built fishing boats. He would spend a year building a single Pero, my dad said. He would say that the strength is not in the big pieces of wood. It is in the small, patient work of fitting them together. It is about the bayanahan, the community. The way all the small, weak pieces work together to make something strong enough to face the sea. He had tapped the fender of the Mustang. "This is our bayanahan, Leo. You and me. We're building this together. That is what makes it strong." He passed away from a heart attack 2 years after we finished it. He only got to drive it with me a handful of times. After he was gone, the car became my sanctuary. When I sat in the driver's seat, I could still smell the faint, familiar scent of his Old Spice cologne. I could feel his presence in the passenger seat. Driving that car was the only way I could still have a conversation with my dad. And now I was going to sell it, to pay for gold leaf chargers and a barn. I told Jessica my plan. She was ecstatic. "Oh, Leo, really?" She'd cried, throwing her arms around me. "You'd do that for me. For us. Oh, that's the most romantic thing anyone has ever done." She was thrilled about the money, about the fact that her perfect, timeless wedding was saved. I don't think she ever for a single moment truly understood the depth of the sacrifice. She saw a car. I was losing a piece of my own heart. The process of selling it was a quiet, private agony. I put an ad online. A collector from Dallas, a man who understood the value of what he was looking at, made me a generous offer immediately. $25,000. Exactly what I needed. The day he came to pick it up, I felt like I was attending a funeral. I took one last drive, the familiar, throaty rumble of the V8, a beautiful, heartbreaking song. I polished the chrome until it gleamed. I sat in the driver's seat for a long time, my hand on the wheel my father's hands had held. And I said goodbye. The collector, a kind older man who loved classic cars as much as my dad had, seemed to understand. "You're sure about this, son?" He asked as he handed me the cashier's check. "I'm sure I lied. For my future." He nodded, got in, and drove away. I stood in my driveway and watched until my beautiful candy apple red time machine, my last conversation with my father, disappeared over the horizon. I deposited the check into our joint wedding account that afternoon. The balance now read, a healthy, wonderful $51,000. We were safe. The dream was secure. I came home that night, the cashier's receipt in my hand, feeling a strange mixture of profound loss and a kind of noble, sacrificial pride. I had done it. I had made the ultimate sacrifice for the woman I loved. For the future we were building together. I showed Jessica the receipt. "It's done," I said. "The money's in the account. You can call the venue tomorrow and make the final payment." She threw her arms around me, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated joy. "Oh my God, Leo, you did it! You saved us!" She kissed me, a deep, passionate kiss. I will make it up to you. I promise. This is going to be the most beautiful, most perfect wedding anyone has ever seen. It's going to be timeless. She was so happy, so radiant. And I, like the world's biggest fool, let myself be swept up in her joy. I ignored the small, quiet voice in the back of my head that was whispering that her joy was not about our shared future. It was about her perfect party. I ignored the fact that she had never once said, "I'm so sorry you had to sell your father's car." I ignored all the red flags, all the warning signs. I just saw the woman I loved, and I saw how happy I had made her. That night, I fell asleep with my arm around her, a feeling of deep, quiet satisfaction in my heart. The sacrifice had been immense, but it had been worth it. Our future was secure. We were a team. We were building something strong together, our own Byanahan. I had no idea that my partner in this project had already stolen the wood, the nails, and the blueprints, and was about to build a monument to a future that did not include me at all. The week after I sold my father's Mustang was a quiet, bittersweet blur. There was a hole in my life, a Mustang-shaped void where my weekends used to be. But the ache of the loss was soothed by a new, profound sense of purpose. I had done it. I had made the ultimate sacrifice for our future. The $50,000, our entire wedding fund, was sitting in our joint savings account. A beautiful, perfect number that represented the sum of our shared dreams. The wedding was 2 weeks away. We were safe. We were a team. On Wednesday, August 6th, I was at my desk at the architecture firm, feeling happy and accomplished. It was a beautiful, sunny afternoon in Austin. I had just finished a major project, and my boss had let me take a long lunch. This was the moment, the final step. I was going to log into our bank account and make the final $50,000 wire transfer to the venue. This was the moment all the saving, all the sacrifice had been leading up to. I opened my web browser, a small, proud smile on my face. I navigated to the bank's website. I typed in my username, my password. I answered the security question. The main account page loaded. I clicked on our joint savings account, the one we had named The Future. The page loaded. And I stared. At the screen, my mind a complete and utter blank. I could not understand what I was seeing. The account balance was not $51,342.19. The account balance was $14.37. I just stared. The number didn't make any sense. It was a typo, a glitch in the system, a bank error. It had to be. I refreshed the page. The number remained $14.37. I logged out and logged back in. $14.37. A cold, sick, creeping dread began to snake its way up my spine. My heart started to beat a fast, frantic, panicked rhythm against my ribs. This wasn't a glitch. I clicked on the transaction history, my hand trembling slightly. And there it was, 2 days ago, the day after I had deposited the cashier's check from the sale of my Mustang. There was a single transaction. A wire transfer, outgoing amount, $51,327.82. Recipient, Austin High-End Motors. I read the name of the recipient 3 times. Austin High-End Motors. A luxury car dealership. The one with the gleaming glass showroom off the highway. The one with the Porsches and the Maseratis and the Lamborghinis lined up out front like beautiful, predatory animals. It still didn't make any sense. My mind was scrambling, trying to find a logical explanation. Identity theft! Was the account hacked? Did someone steal our information? It was the only possibility that my brain was willing to entertain. The alternative was simply unthinkable, unimaginable. My first call was to Jessica. She was, according to her texts from that morning, at a client meeting for her freelance design business. She answered on the fourth ring, her voice a little breathless, a little distracted. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice full of a bright, cheerful energy that was a stark, jarring contrast to the cold, black hole that was opening up in my own stomach. "What's up? I'm in the middle of something." I tried to keep my own voice calm, to not let the panic seep in. "Jess, hey, sorry to bother you, but there's something weird with the wedding account. I just logged in, and the money's gone." The line was silent for a beat. "What?" she said. Her voice was not panicked. It was flat. "Oh my God, really? That's so weird. Weird." I repeated, my voice rising despite myself. "Jess, it's $50,000. It's our entire wedding fund. It's gone." Okay, calm down, Leo," she said, her voice now a soothing, placating balm. It was the voice she used when I was stressing out about the budget for the flowers. "It's probably just a bank mistake. You know how they are. I'll look into it later, okay? I'm in the middle of this really important meeting. Don't worry about it, babe. It'll be fine." She wanted me to not worry about it. She wanted me to just let it go. Before I could protest, before I could tell her about the wire transfer to the car dealership, she cut me off. "Babe, I have to go. My client is staring at me. I'll call you later. Love you." And she hung up. I sat at my desk, the phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. A bank mistake. She thought $50,000 disappearing from our account was a bank mistake. Her reaction, her complete and utter lack of alarm, was a bigger red flag than the wire transfer itself. The cold dread in my stomach was beginning to feel a lot like the truth. I left work. Don't remember the drive home. My mind was a roaring, chaotic mess of denial and a sickening, rising certainty. I was a man walking towards a verdict I already knew. I got to our apartment. I sat on the sofa and I waited. An hour later, I heard it. It was not the sound of her sensible 10-year-old Toyota Corolla. It was a sound I knew from the deepest, most primal part of my gearhead soul. It was the low, throaty, and ridiculously expensive roar of a German flat-six engine. I walked to the window that overlooked our apartment complex's parking lot, and I saw it. A car, a brand new, impossibly beautiful and achingly familiar car, was pulling into our designated parking spot. It was a Porsche 718 Cayman. Its paint was a shade of brilliant Guards red that was almost identical to the color of my father's Mustang. The irony was so profound, so exquisitely cruel, it was like a physical blow. And then the driver's side door opened, and Jessica got out. She did not look like a woman who had just been informed that her entire wedding fund had vanished. She looked triumphant. She had a huge, beaming, 1,000-watt smile on her face. She was wearing a new dress, new shoes, sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly car payment used to. She was a vision of pure, unadulterated, and stolen luxury. She saw me standing in the window. She waved a big, theatrical, movie star wave. I walked out of the apartment and met her in the parking lot. I was a dead man walking. The air was hot and thick with the smell of new leather and the ticking of a cooling engine. "Surprise!" she squealed, throwing her arms around my neck. I did not hug her back. I just stood there, my body a rigid pillar of stone. She pulled back, her smile faltering slightly as she finally registered the look on my face. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice a perfect imitation of innocent confusion. I didn't say anything. I just looked past her at the car. At the beautiful, terrible, blood-red car. Her eyes followed my gaze, and her smile returned. This time a little more strained. "Oh my God, I know. Isn't it incredible? It's a surprise. An early wedding present." "A present," I repeated, my voice a hollow echo. "Yes," she said, her voice a little too bright. "From my uncle. Robert, you know, the one in finance? He felt so bad he couldn't make it to the wedding, so he sent his gift a little early. He's so sweet. I was going to tell you tonight, but you saw it. Are you surprised?" I looked at her beautiful, smiling, and utterly, completely lying face. And in that moment, the man who had loved her, the man who had believed in her, the man who had sacrificed a piece of his own soul for her, died. He died right there in that hot, soulless parking lot. And the man who was left in his place was a stranger. A man with a heart full of cold, black, and silent rage. I took out my phone. I didn't say a word. I just opened the banking app and held the screen up for her to see. I showed her the account balance, $14.37, and then I showed her the wire transfer. The $50-1-1000 transfer to Austin High-End Motors. I watched her face as she looked at the screen. I watched the bright, confident, lying smile melt away. I watched the color drain from her cheeks. I watched the look of pure animal. Panic flicker in her eyes as she realized the game was up. She had been caught. "Oh," she whispered, her voice a small, pathetic thing. That the single word that confirmed the entire devastating betrayal. I stood there in the parking lot. The sound of the Porsche's engine ticking as it cooled, the ghost of my father's Mustang screaming in my head. The dream was not just expensive, it was a lie. The whole, entire thing. The wedding was off. My heart was broken. And my war was just beginning. The word hung in the hot, still air of the parking lot, a tiny, pathetic admission of a colossal crime. That, as in that $51,000 I stole from our shared future. As in that monument to my own selfishness I am currently standing in front of. I looked from her beautiful, panicked face to the gleaming red Porsche, a car that was the exact same color as my father's ghost. And the fragile, carefully constructed dam inside my heart finally, catastrophically broke. But the flood was not hot. It was ice cold, so there's no Uncle Robert, is there? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Leo, I can explain," she started, her hands fluttering in a gesture of panicked dismissal. "Can you?" I asked. "Can you explain the wire transfer? Can you explain the lie? Can you explain how you could look me in the eye and let me sell the one thing my father left me? The one real piece of him I had left, so you could buy yourself a toy?" The questions came out in a low, steady, and utterly merciless rhythm. The architect in me was taking over, dismantling her lies brick by rotten brick. I was going to pay it back. She cried, her voice rising, tears of self-pity beginning to well in her eyes. "My commission check from work is coming next month. I was going to put it all back, and then the car really would have been a surprise. You You found out too soon. You've ruined it. I've ruined it. The audacity of the statement was so profound it almost made me laugh. I was not the criminal. I was the one who had discovered the crime. She was trying to gaslight me, to twist her calculated sociopathic selfishness into a charming, romantic gesture that I had spoiled with my inconvenient discovery of the facts. "You're right," I said, my voice dripping with an irony so cold it burned. "My mistake. I should have just let you get away with it. We could have shown up to the venue, had our accounts declined, and been humiliated in front of everyone. That would have been a much better surprise. We were drawing attention now." A neighbor was peering out from their balcony. The quiet, idyllic world of our Austin apartment complex was now the stage for our own private, ugly drama. "Let's go inside," I said, my voice flat. The argument continued in our apartment. The one place that had felt like our sanctuary. It was no longer a sanctuary. It was a courtroom. And I was the prosecution. She tried every tactic in the book. She cried. She pleaded. She tried to make it about my lack of trust in her. Then she tried to make it about her own stress. "Do you have any idea how much pressure I've been under?" she wailed, pacing the living room. "Planning this wedding, making sure everything is perfect, making sure it all looks good for you. The photos for my family. It's a full-time job. I needed something for myself, something beautiful. Don't you think I deserve something beautiful after all this?" And that was it. That was the moment, the last lingering, microscopic ember of love I had for her finally died, leaving nothing but cold gray ash. "Deserve it?" I asked, my voice a low, dangerous whisper. I walked over to the small, decorative table by. The door on it was a framed photo of my father and me leaning against the Mustang, our hands covered in grease, both of us beaming with pride. It was from the day we finally got the engine to turn over. I picked up the photo. "Let me tell you about what people deserve, Jessica," I said, my voice trembling with a rage that was so deep, so profound, it felt ancient. "My father, the man in this picture, worked 2 jobs for 30 years after he came to this country from a small village in the Philippines. He worked as a mechanic by day and a janitor by night. He sacrificed everything for me so I could have a better life, so I could become an architect. This car was the one beautiful thing he ever bought for himself. And he and I spent a decade of our weekends rebuilding it together. It wasn't just a car. It was our time. It was our bond." I looked at her, my eyes burning. "My family has a concept. It's called utang na loob. It's a debt of gratitude, a sense of shared sacrifice. You build a life together. You carry each other's burdens. You honor each other's sacrifices." I pointed at the red beast in the parking lot. "You didn't just spend $50,000. You took the story in this photograph. You took my father's memory. You took the concept of utang na loob, of our shared future. And you cashed it all in to buy yourself a shiny red monument to your own pathetic, bottomless selfishness." I set the photograph down, my hand shaking. "The wedding is off," I said, and the words, when I finally said them out loud, were a profound, terrible, and wonderful relief. We are done. The fight was over. The relationship was over. All that was left was the logistical nightmare, the non-refundable deposits, the hundreds of guests who had already booked flights and hotels, the mountain of shared dreams that now had to be disassembled and thrown away. I spent the next 2 days in a cold, grief-stricken haze. I moved my things out of our apartment and into a cheap motel. I called my mother and told her the news. She was heartbroken for me, but her voice was full of a quiet steel fury for what Jessica had done. "You cannot buy Dungog," she had said. "You cannot buy honor." It was on the 3rd day, as I was on the phone, painstakingly canceling the caterer, the florist, the band, that the new idea, the seed of my real revenge, began to form. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Vance," the woman from the venue was saying. "But as you know, the $50,000 deposit is non-refundable. We have another party interested in the date, but at this short notice—" "Wait," I said, a strange, new, and terrible idea blooming in my mind. "Don't cancel the booking, sir. The party is still on," I said, the plan forming word by word as I spoke it. "We're just changing the theme. It's no longer a wedding. It's a charity gala." The moment I said the words, I knew it was perfect. It was insane. It was audacious. And it was perfect. My revenge would not be a quiet, ugly, legal battle over money. It would be a grand, public, and beautiful spectacle. I would not let her act of greed result in a $50,000 waste. I would transform it. I would turn her selfish private act into a selfless public one. And she would be forced to watch. Ha! I returned to the apartment that evening. She was there, surrounded by boxers, her face puffy from days of crying. Her beautiful new Porsche was still in the parking lot, a mocking scarlet letter. She looked up at me, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Leo, have you come back?" "No," I said, my voice calm and cold. "I'm here with a business proposition." I laid out the plan. I was no longer the heartbroken fiancé. I was an architect presenting a new, non-negotiable blueprint. "The wedding is canceled," I stated. "But the party is not." "On Saturday, the event at the Hill Country Manor will proceed as planned. Our guests will still attend. But it will now be the inaugural Gala for Hope, a fundraiser for the Austin Children's Hospital." She stared at me, her face a mask of pure, uncomprehending confusion. "What are you talking about?" "You and I continued, my voice, a flat, emotionless drone, will be the gracious co-hosts. We will tell everyone that we decided to forego our own celebration to give back to the community. And the main event of the evening, the grand prize in the charity auction, will be a brand new bright red Porsche T-Bach Amen, generously donated by you." The color drained from her face. "No," she whispered. "No, you can't. I won't do it." "Oh, you will," I said, and I leaned in, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous whisper. "Because here is the alternative. If you do not agree, if you do not play your part as the selfless, philanthropic hero of the evening, then I will walk out of this apartment. And I will drive to the Austin Police Department. I will take this bank statement." I held up my phone, "and I will file a report for felony grand theft and wire fraud. And I will press charges." I let the words sink in. I saw the calculation in her eyes, the panicked, desperate weighing of her options. Her beloved new car on one side, a criminal record, a public and humiliating trial, and the very real possibility of jail time on the other. "It's your choice, Jessica," I said, my voice as soft as silk and as hard as steel. "A few hours of public pretend generosity, while you watch your car get sold, or a felony conviction that will follow you for the rest of your life." I stood up to leave. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. I didn't have to wait that long. She texted me before I had even reached my car. I'll do it. The trap was set. The new event was in motion. She thought she had taken my future. She had no idea I was about to auction hers off to the highest bidder. The 2 weeks between the end of my world and the beginning of my revenge were the most intensely focused and productive of my entire life. The heartbroken fiancé was gone, replaced by the architect. I had a new, complex, and deeply personal project with an impossible deadline and a single, immovable client. Justice, my apartment, which had been a sad, quiet tomb of my grief, transformed into a bustling command center. I channeled every ounce of my professional skill, my meticulous attention to detail, into this new audacious endeavor. I was not just planning a party. I was orchestrating a masterpiece of social engineering. First, I had to manage the fallout. I spent 2 full days on the phone, a marathon of carefully crafted lies and half-truths. I called every one of our 200 wedding guests. I was calm, I was cheerful, and I was convincing. "Hi, Auntie," I'd say. Just calling with a quick update on the wedding. Jessica and I have decided to do something a little different. We're changing the theme. It's a surprise. Just be sure to bring your checkbook. You'll see why. We can't wait to celebrate with you. To the vendors, the florist, the band. The caterer was a cool-headed groom handling a last-minute change of heart from his benevolent fiancé. Yes, it's no longer a wedding. I'd say smoothly. It's a charity gala. The client is now the Austin Children's Hospital. All other details remain the same. Then I had to manage Jessica. Our interactions were brief, transactional, and colder than a tomb. We were no longer lovers. We were 2 hostile parties in a legally binding, unwritten contract. I needed her to sign the title of the Porsche over to a temporary trust I had created for the charity. She refused, of course, until I quietly slid a printed copy of the Texas Penal Code for felony grand theft across the table. She signed. I needed her to record a short, cheerful video for the hospital's website, announcing her incredibly generous donation. She recorded 17 takes, her face a mask of bitter resentment, until she finally produced one where she looked convincingly selfless. She was a terrible actress when the script wasn't her own. She was my hostage, and she knew it. She was trapped in a beautiful, gilded cage of her own making, and I was the one holding the key. Every day I would send her updates on the gala for hope, praising her for her vision, for her generosity. Every text was another twist of the knife, another reminder of the public performance that was to come. The night of the event, the night that was supposed to be my wedding, I arrived at the Hill Country Manor feeling a strange, profound sense of calm. The venue was exactly as we had planned for our wedding. The ancient oak trees were strewn with thousands of twinkling lights. The barn was filled with hundreds of candles. The tables set with the beautiful floral arrangements we had chosen together months ago. It was the ghost of our dead wedding, resurrected as the stage for my revenge. The guests began to arrive, a sea of confused but intrigued faces. They had come expecting a wedding and had walked into a mystery. I greeted them at the door, a perfect, charming host. "Marco, what's going on?" my uncle asked. "Where's the bride?" "All will be revealed, Tito," I said with a smile. "Just get a drink and enjoy the party." Then Jessica made her entrance. She was a vision of tragic, beautiful hypocrisy. She was wearing a stunning floor-length emerald gown, her hair and makeup perfect. She looked like a queen. But her eyes, they were the eyes of a woman on her way to her own execution. Her smile was a perfect, bright, and utterly brittle thing. A piece of glass that looked like it might shatter at any moment. She walked to my side, a silent, beautiful co-conspirator in her own downfall. "You look stunning," I murmured. For the benefit of the guests around us, "I hate you," she whispered back, her smile never faltering. "I know," I said. "Now go mingle. And remember to talk about how thrilled you are to be giving back to the community." For the next hour, we played our parts. We were the perfect benevolent power couple, the toast of the Austin philanthropic scene. We accepted the confused congratulations of our friends and family. And all the while, the main event, the centerpiece of my revenge, was waiting, hidden just out of sight. At 9 o'clock, the band finished a set, and I walked onto the stage. A single spotlight hit me. The room fell silent. 200 pairs of eyes were on me, waiting for an explanation. My heart was pounding, but my voice, when it came out, was clear and steady. "Good evening, everyone," I began. "Thank you all so much for coming." I smiled a warm, genuine smile. "I know many of you came here tonight expecting a wedding." A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. "And I promise you, we will get to that. But first, I want to tell you a story." I looked out at the crowd, at the faces of the people I loved. And then my eyes found Jessica, standing near the back, her face a perfect pale mask. "A few weeks ago," I continued, as Jessica and I were in the final frantic stages of planning our big day, "we had a moment of clarity. We were looking at the budgets, at the sheer scale of the expense, and we started to talk about what it all really meant. What a wedding, what a marriage is truly for." I paused, letting the words hang in the air. "My father," I said, my voice growing softer, "was an immigrant. He came to this country from a small fishing village in the Philippines called Sibalam, and he taught me a very important lesson. He taught me about a concept they have there, a concept called bayanihan." I spelled out the word for them. It means community. It means a spirit of communal work, of lifting each other up. In his village, if a family needed to build a new house, the entire town would show up and help for free. They would work together, sweat together, and then celebrate together, because they understood that the strength of the village was the strength of its weakest member. I looked back at Jessica, and I gave her a look of such profound and utterly false admiration that it was the most dishonest thing I had ever done in my life. And as we were talking, I said, my voice full of a sudden, powerful emotion, "My incredible, my wise, my unbelievably generous fiancé." Jessica, she turned to me and she said, "Marco, our wedding is not just about us. It's about our community." She said, "What if we could take this one beautiful day, this celebration of our own good fortune, and turn it into something more? What if we could use it to build something for our community?" The crowd was silent, captivated. They were leaning into my story, this beautiful, perfect lie. Jessica's face was a masterpiece of controlled horror. She was trapped. She could not deny it. She had to stand there and accept the sainthood I was bestowing upon her. "And so," I declared, my voice now booming with a new, powerful joy, "that's what we decided to do. We have canceled our wedding, and instead we have turned this celebration into the first annual Gala for Hope, with every single dollar raised tonight going to the Austin Children's Hospital. The room exploded into a thunderous, heartfelt standing ovation. People were cheering, they were crying. Were looking at Jessica with an expression of pure, unadulterated awe. My beautiful, selfish, materialistic ex-fiancé was being hailed as a philanthropic hero, a saint of the community. It was the most exquisite, most poetic, and most humiliating torture I could have possibly devised. But I wasn't done yet. And now I yelled over the applause for our main event, the charity auction. And to kick it off, my incredible partner, Jessica, has insisted on donating a very special, very personal item. I gestured to the side of the stage. The large doors to the barn swung open. And my revenge, in all its gleaming candy apple red glory, was driven onto the stage. The Porsche. It glittered and shone under the spotlights, a perfect six-figure symbol of her greed. The crowd gasped. A brand new 2025 Porsche 718 Cayman. I announced, generously, selflessly, and with a heart full of love for the children of this city, donated by the woman I love, my fiancée Jessica. The applause was deafening. It was a physical force. I walked over to Jessica, took her hand, and led her onto the stage into the blinding white light of the spotlight. She had no choice but to follow. She stood beside me, her hand in mine, and she smiled and waved at the cheering crowd. Her eyes full of a dead, silent, and impotent rage. The professional auctioneer we had hired took the stage. The bidding began. And I stood there, my arm around my beautiful, terrible, trapped ex-fiancé. And I watched as the symbol of her betrayal, the car she had sacrificed our future for, was sold to the highest bidder. The war was over, and my victory was absolute. It was public, and, I had to admit, it was very, very sweet. I stood on the stage, my arm around the beautiful, hollow woman who had been my fiancé, and I watched the feeding frenzy. The auctioneer, a fast-talking professional I had hired named Bobby, was a true artist. He wasn't just selling a car. He was selling a story. My story. Look at this machine, ladies and gentlemen, Bobby bellowed, his voice echoing through the packed barn. The Porsche was gleaming under the spotlights, a perfect predatory jewel. A 2025 Porsche 718 Cayman. 0 miles. It's the finest piece of German engineering on the market. But tonight, it's more than just a car. Tonight, this is a symbol of generosity, a symbol of the incredible, selfless spirit of our two hosts, Marco and the lovely, the inspirational Jessica. The crowd roared its approval. I felt Jessica flinch beside me, a tiny, almost imperceptible tremor of rage. I just smiled down at her, a look of pure public adoration on my face. She was trapped. She had no choice but to smile back, a brilliant, brittle, and utterly fake smile. We'll start the bidding at its retail value, Bobby shouted. $100,000. Do I hear 100,000 for the children? A hand in the front row shot up immediately. A tech billionaire I recognized from the newspaper. 100,000. I have 100,000, Bobby cried. A beautiful bid from a beautiful man. But we can do better for the kids, can't we, Austin? He turned to Jessica, his face full of performative awe. Look at that, Jessica. $100,000, just like that. Your generosity is already inspiring greatness. Jessica's smile tightened. She was a marble statue of misery. Every cheer from the crowd, every word of praise for her generosity was a fresh, exquisite turn of the screw. This was the true genius of my revenge. I hadn't just taken her car. I had transformed her greatest act of selfishness into her greatest moment of public sainthood. And I was forcing her to stand here and accept the applause for it. It was a prison of praise, a gilded cage of her own making, and I was the one. Holding the door one, a woman in a diamond necklace shouted from the back. 110,000! Bobby roared. We're talking. This is what community is all about. The bidding became a frantic, exhilarating war. 120, 125. The numbers were astronomical, unreal. The wealthy guests were not just bidding on a car anymore. They were caught up in the narrative, in the beautiful story of the young, selfless couple who had sacrificed their own wedding for the good of the community. They were bidding on a piece of the legend. I watched Jessica's face. To the rest of the world, she was a radiant, emotional benefactress, watching the fruits of her generosity multiply. But I was standing right next to her. I could see the tiny muscle twitching in her jaw. I could see the dead, cold fury in her eyes. I could feel the heat of her rage coming off her in waves. She was not just losing her car, she was losing her identity. The identity she had purchased with my father's ghost. The car was a symbol of her status, of her luxurious aspirational self. And now she was being forced to watch as that symbol was sold off piece by piece to a room full of strangers, all while they cheered her for it. 140,000. The tech billionaire shouted, double quotes, 1-50. The woman with the diamonds countered, let's get these kids a new hospital wing. The crowd went wild. The number was absurd, far beyond the car's actual value. I leaned in close to Jessica, my voice a low, intimate whisper for her ears only. Isn't this wonderful, darling? I murmured. Think of all the good you're doing. I felt her hand, the one I was holding, clench into a fist. I will ruin you for this, Marco, she hissed, her smile never leaving her face. Unlikely, I whispered back. The press is calling you the Angel of Austin. It would be a shame to tarnish that new halo. Sold. Bobby! Finally yelled, slamming his gavel down with a resounding crack. For $150,000 to the magnificent lady in the back. The room exploded into the loudest, most sustained ovation of the night. It was a physical wall of sound. I took Jessica's hand and raised our arms in the air like we were triumphant champions. The flashbulbs from the reporters at the front of the stage were a blinding, relentless strobe. And in that brilliant, flashing light, her face was a perfect, beautiful mask of agony. My revenge was complete. And it was, just as I had planned, timeless. It was immortalized in 1,000 photographs. The rest of the evening was a surreal victory lap. Jessica and I were mobbed by well-wishers. People were shaking my hand, but they were worshiping her. Jessica, that was the most inspiring thing I have ever witnessed. A city councilman gushed, his eyes full of a politician's admiration for a masterful public performance. You are a true angel. A wealthy socialite said, clutching her hand. You have reminded us all what it truly means to give. The director of the children's hospital, a small, kind woman with tears in her eyes, took the stage and presented Jessica with a large, tacky, and very public plaque. With deepest gratitude to Jessica, our angel of hope, it read. Jessica was forced to pose for a dozen photos with it, her perfect pained smile plastered on her face. Each photo was another nail in her coffin. I played my part. I was the proud, supportive partner. She has the most generous heart of anyone I've ever known. I told a reporter from the Austin Chronicle. When she came to me with this idea, I was just blown away. She's the real hero here. Every word of praise I uttered was a small, perfect, and utterly satisfying lie. We finally escaped late into the night. We did not speak in the car. The silence was a heavy, dead thing between us. We got back to the apartment, the one we were supposed to have shared as husband and wife. It was just a space now, filled with the ghosts of a future that would never happen. She sat on the sofa, her beautiful emerald dress now looking like a costume from a play that had ended badly. I went to my desk. I took out a checkbook. I wrote a check for $25,000, her half of the initial wedding fund, minus her share of the non-refundable costs of the gala we had just hosted. I placed it on the coffee table in front of her. "This is yours," I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. "The rest of the proceeds, after paying the vendors, have already been transferred to the hospital." She looked at the check. Then she looked at me. The performance was over. All that was left was the raw, ugly truth. "I hate you," she said, her voice a low, trembling whisper. "I know," I said. And the terrible, sad truth of it was, I felt nothing. No love, no hate, just a vast, quiet, and profound indifference. The woman I had loved had been an illusion. And the real woman, the one sitting in front of me now, was just a stranger I had once known. "I think you should go now, Jessica." She took the check. And without another word, she stood up, walked to the door, and left my life forever. The silence she left behind was the cleanest, most beautiful sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of freedom. It was the sound of my own life, returning to me. The next morning, I was at my office, looking out the window at the Austin skyline. My phone rang. It was my mother. "Marco, Anak," she said, her voice bursting with a pride so powerful I could feel it through the phone. "The whole family, all your Titos and Titas, we saw the article online. The Angel of Austin. We are so, so proud of you." "It was a team effort, Ma," I said, smiling. "No," she said, her voice suddenly serious. It was you. You took a situation of great pain, of great disrespect, and you turned it into a blessing for your community. You did not just get your money back. You defended your dungog. You protected your honor. And you did it by helping others. Thought is the true spirit of Bayanihan. That is the heart of our family. Your father, he would have been so proud." I looked out at the city, at the cranes building the future, at the life that was stretching out before me. The wound was still there, but it no longer ached. It was a scar, a reminder of a battle I had fought and a victory I had won. Just for me, but for my father's memory, for my family's honor, for the kids at the hospital. My revenge was complete. But the victory felt bigger and cleaner and so much better than mere revenge. It felt like hope. Of course, the story of the gala was the story of Marco's public victory. But every victory is the result of a choice, a single moment where one path is taken and all others are abandoned. You have asked for another act. So let us walk, for a moment, down the paths not taken. It has been a month since the Gala for Hope. The noise has died down. the local news has moved on to other stories. Jessica, I have heard through the grapevine, has moved to Dallas, seeking a fresh start in a city where her name is not yet. A synonym for public humiliation. My life has settled into a new, quiet rhythm. The check from the auction proceeds. My $25,000 sits uncashed on my desk. The rest, a much larger sum, is already at work at the Children's Hospital funding a new pediatric wing. My victory is complete. My honor, my dungog, is restored. I am at peace, but sometimes, in the quiet of the evening, after the work is done and the world is still, the mind wanders. It drifts back to that fork in the road, that terrible clarifying moment in the parking lot, standing in the shadow of that blood-red Porsche. I made a choice that night. I chose the path of the gala, the path of a public, poetic, and charitable revenge. But there were other paths. Darker, uglier, and more conventional paths. And sometimes I let myself wonder, what would have happened if I had taken them? What if I had been a different man? The first path, the lawyers wore in this timeline, the architect in me. The man of cold logic and hard contracts wins out over the son of a Filipino immigrant. The anger is not a catalyst for creativity. It is a catalyst for litigation. I do not come up with the idea for a charity gala. I come up with the idea for a lawsuit, the morning after our final. Ugly fight. I do not go for a long, soul-searching walk. I go to the best, most ruthless contract lawyer in Austin. I sit in his cold leather and mahogany office, and I lay out the evidence, the joint account, the bank statements, the text messages where we discuss the wedding fund. The lawyer's eyes gleam. It's a slam dunk, he says. Clear-cut case of conversion and fraudulent misrepresentation. We'll sue her for your half of the funds plus punitive damages. And so it begins. Not a clever, quiet campaign, but a brutal, public, and incredibly ugly war of attrition. She gets a lawyer, a shark from a big downtown firm. And the battle is joined. The next year of my life is a living hell. It is a series of depositions, of interrogatories, of endless soul-crushing legal paperwork. Her lawyers try to paint me as a bitter, jilted gold digger, a man who is after her money all along and is now suing out of spite. They dredge up every angry text I sent after our breakup. They twist my grief and my rage into a portrait of a greedy, unstable man, my own. Lawyer is just as brutal. He forces me to detail every aspect of our relationship, to quantify our shared life in dollars and cents. The Mustang is no longer a symbol of my father's love. It is Exhibit A, a financial asset. Our shared dreams are reduced to line items in a legal complaint. The case drags on. The legal fees mount, eating away at any potential settlement. Our friends are forced to choose sides, to give depositions against one another. It becomes a small, ugly war that consumes our entire social circle. And in this timeline, I have to call my parents in Oregon, my Lola in Sibilum, and I have to explain. What is happening? I have to tell them that I am in a public, vicious legal fight with a woman I was supposed to marry, all over money. I can imagine the quiet, profound disappointment in my mother's voice. I can imagine my Lola's words. You are fighting. Like an American knack, with paper and with anger. You have forgotten to fight with your heart. In the end, maybe I win. Maybe a judge orders her to pay me back my $25,000. I get the money, but what is the cost? Kana is not restored. It is sullied, dragged through the mud of a public, messy lawsuit. My heart is not healed. It is calloused over, made bitter and cynical by a year of fighting. I do not get a clean victory. I just get a check. And I am left alone in the quiet of my apartment with the cold hard cash and the ghost of a love that died a slow, ugly, and very expensive death. The community is not helped. There is no gala for hope. There is no new pediatric wing. There is only the ugly, hollow victory of a battle won at the cost of my own soul. This path is even darker. In this timeline, my pride, my wounded, shattered pride, is the only thing that matters. I am too humiliated to fight. I am too angry to sue. I am too proud to admit to the world how badly I was played. The night of the confrontation, after she confesses, I do not offer an ultimatum. I just leave. I tell her we are done. I pack my things. I walk away from the apartment, from the car, from the $50,000 from her. I tell my family and friends that we simply grew apart. I absorbed the entire financial and emotional loss myself, a secret, festering wound. I go back to my life. I teach my classes. I coach my team. But the joy is gone. It has been replaced by a quiet, corrosive bitterness. My heart is a block of ice. I do not trust anyone. I do not date. I build a wall around myself, a fortress of resentment, and she gets away with it. She keeps the Porsche. She keeps the money. There is no public humiliation. There is no reckoning. She moves on. I see her on social media living her beautiful, luxurious life. Yes. I see her posting photos of herself, smiling, leaning against the red car that was bought with my father's memory. And every single post is a fresh twist of the knife in my gut. The injustice of it all eats away at me. The anger I never let out. The revenge I never took. It turns inward. It poisons everything. I become a worse teacher, a worse coach, a worse son. My patience wears thin. I am short with my students. I am distant with my family. When I call my mother, I lie. I tell her I am fine, but she can hear the hollowness in my voice. When I speak to my Lola, I cannot meet her eyes on the video call. I cannot tell this woman, a woman of such profound strength and honor, that I let someone disrespect our family, our name, and I did nothing. I let the thief win. I let the bully get away with it. In this timeline, there is no victory at all. There is only the slow, quiet, and complete erosion of my own character. I did not lose a car or some money. I lost myself. I am left with my pride, my silence, and a life sentence of quiet, impotent rage. I am a ghost, haunted by the justice. I was too proud and too cowardly to claim for myself.